You guys know I always start off with a question. So here's my question for today. What's the worst advice that you've ever received? Okay, think about it. What's the worst advice that you've ever received? I'm going to tell you guys mine, but I looked it up online. They actually, somebody posted on Reddit. It's like if you don't know what Reddit is, it's like a forum. And they asked this question, and here are some of the ones I thought was pretty funny. Advice number one, a girl asked how her makeup would stay. I don't know what that means. Does that mean like the makeup would like stay throughout the day? Okay. I guess it like melts off. Huh? So somebody told her, use hairspray to make the makeup stay. She said it just made her face sticky and crunchy. Okay? Number two, somebody had a really bad sunburn. And so someone said, wear really tight clothes to squeeze the burn off. I don't recommend you doing that. That's not a good deal. All right, number three. This person really wanted some ice cream. And so brother said, hey, you don't need to buy ice cream. It's more expensive. Just go buy milk and freeze it. No, that's not how you make ice cream. Somebody said, a good way to ask a girl on a date. You guys tell me if this is good advice. I think it's horrible advice. This person said, sniff the girl's hair and then ask her for her shoe size. That's a great way to ask her on a date. Yeah, kids, don't try that, okay? One more. If this person bought a used car, and the person who was using the car smoked, and so when she got the car smelled like cigarettes. So she said, somebody said, spray vinegar. She said it smelled like pickled cigarettes in her car. All right. What's the worst advice you received? I had something very similar. So in Sabbath school I talked about it, but I broke my arm when I was a younger kid. And so because of that, for some reason I actually broke both of these arms, both of the bones right here. And so I had the cast on for a very, very long time. And because of that, I don't know if you guys ever had a cast before, but it starts to smell. Okay, it starts to smell really badly. And so I talked to my mom because the kids were kind of complaining. They're like, hey, Jimmy smells. And so I got really sad and I asked my mom, what do I do? And she said, like Febreze? Like, let's spray that. That smells good. Okay. Just like the cigarette and vinaigrette, okay? Or not vinaigrette, vinegar. Just because something smells bad and Febreze or these kind of sprays smells good, if you combine it together, our thought is, it'll mask the smell. It doesn't work like that, okay? So I sprayed it and it started smelling really, really badly. And so I had no friends in elementary school after that. What's the worst advice that you've ever received? Can you guys think of something? What's the worst advice? Well, let's think about it. Why do we usually ask for advice in the first place? We normally ask for advice because of, at least for me, two things I thought about. The first thing is we usually ask for advice. We usually ask for advice because we feel stuck. Right? We ran out of ideas. Maybe we tried it our own way, but we weren't really getting anywhere. Or maybe because we became very desperate, right? Desperate situation. And that's why we ask for advice. But something else about just, I think, human nature is whenever we're going through a difficult time or a hard time, it seems like instead of just going through it alone, we want to share it with somebody else. So maybe it's not even for the advice itself. Maybe we know how to fix something. But whenever we go through struggle, whenever we go through pain or suffering, whenever we go through pain or suffering, we want to share it with somebody else. Like we want somebody to say, I know what you're going through. We want someone to say, maybe I don't know what you're going through, but I just want to be next to you while you're going through this pain. So, as you guys know, if you look at the bottom part right here, we started a new sermon series. We have started, and we're going over this idea of gift of pain. Whenever you guys are going through a difficult time, whenever you are going through pain, who is someone that you call? Or who is someone that you go to? Right? So hopefully, you guys have at least one or two people that you could think of right away. If not, then I'm sorry, and you could come to me, and I'll listen to you. But most of the time, we go to friends. Maybe some of you guys feel comfortable with your siblings. Some of you guys, maybe family members, maybe parents, right? What I'm going to tell you, it's going to sound very cliche, okay, is what obviously we're at church, and as a pastor, what am I going to tell you guys? Go to God. It's very, very interesting. This is from Isaiah chapter 9, and this is about Jesus. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. What's really interesting here is it actually says God is a counselor. Have you guys ever thought about that before? God as a counselor? I mean, most of us, we think of God, does mighty God? Oh, no problem with that. Does God who is lofty and he's sitting on his throne? We have no problem with that kind of view of God. Or even a father. No problem. Prince of Peace? No problem with that. Maybe even a friend figure? Absolutely. But a counselor. God or Jesus as a counselor. Have you ever thought of God as a counselor before? As someone that you just go and unload and talk to about your problems? Today, I'm going to talk about why the Bible says he's a wonderful, wonderful counselor. And why you hear in churches, go to God whenever you have problems. Go to God. Okay? We're going to talk about why we humans as counselors, even though we do help other humans, it's never quite enough. And why today we're going to talk about how Jesus is the ultimate counselor and why we need to go to him. This is our Bible verse for today. Hebrews chapter 2, 14 through 18, and chapter 4, 15 through 16. This is the word of God. Since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, Jesus himself likewise partook of the same things, that through death he might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver all those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. For surely it is not angels that he helps, but he helps the offsprings of Abraham, or he helps us humans. Therefore, Jesus had to be made like his brothers in every respect, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. For because Jesus himself has suffered when tempted, Jesus is able to help those who are being tempted. This is chapter 4. Since then, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then, with confidence, draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. This is the word of God. The Bible tells us 2 reasons why humans, us, we have such a difficult time being the perfect counselor. And the Bible also tells us 2 reasons why, the opposite reason why, God is actually the great counselor. Number 1, if you ever go to somebody, okay, and I'm sure you have had this kind of experience where you go to somebody and you talk to them and they just don't get it, right? Maybe they're listening to you, but they can't sympathize with you, okay? So let's say you have a problem. Maybe you're going through a very difficult time, pain, suffering, and you go to them, and the pastor or a friend or a parent or family member, they go, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Okay, anything else? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, let me pray for you. Then, deep down inside, you go, I mean, I get it that this person is listening to me. I get it that this person is maybe even trustworthy. But this person doesn't get it. This person doesn't get the unfulfilled desires I have. This person doesn't understand maybe the alienation that I'm going through. Maybe this person doesn't understand disappointment and loneliness like I do. And so there is this deep, maybe you talk to somebody, you unloaded your burden, but yet at the same time, you feel like, man, this person really doesn't get it. Now, this tells us that Jesus is a great high priest, or he's this great counselor. Why? Because he is able to sympathize with us. Why? Because Jesus is someone that actually has gone through the same unfulfillment that you have gone through. Jesus has gone through the alienation, the loneliness, the deep longing of his heart that was unsatisfied. He understands. He went through it. Now, number 2. First one, you have to be able to sympathize, but yet at the same time, they have to be the counselor or the person who you are talking to. They have to be a little bit different than you. What do I mean by that? So imagine you talk to them. You say, I'm going through a very difficult time right now. Maybe career, it's not working out the way it should. Or maybe I'm having family problems. And you're talking to them and you're saying, this is so hurting. And you look up and you see that person just like crying and crying. And that person can't like help it. It's like, this is so bad. It's like they're going through, like they're so immersed in your pain that they cannot help you. You're kind of like, whoa, 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 like, I'm the sad one here. Like, why are you so... Have you guys ever gone through that experience where the person that you're talking to is actually more affected by you? And actually, so one of the things when I was doing hospital chaplaincy, and because we, as hospital chaplain, you see so many different things, and you see so many people in pain and suffering. And so one of the things that I always tell us is, if you cannot control yourself emotionally, you got to leave the room. You got to say, excuse me, and leave the room. Right? It's because they know that if you as a caretaker or you as a pastor, if you're having a difficult time, controlling your emotions, then you cannot help that person. And so we have this dynamic right here where we says, yes, God is able to sympathize with everything that we have gone through. And the word is yet. Yet, he's the perfect counselor because he's not overwhelmed by the pain. Now, usually, whenever we hear this, we go, well, I know that Jesus went through a lot of stuff in the Bible, but it says Jesus went through every aspect. And so what people usually ask is, I mean, Jesus never went to a divorce before, through a divorce, like I did. Jesus never went through a miscarriage, like I did. Jesus never went, maybe he never gone through a paralyzing situation, like physically disabled and in a wheelchair, like I did. And so, does Jesus really understand everything that I've really gone through? So, there's two aspects. Because if you really want to press onto this idea, if you think about it, then if you say that Jesus had to go through every single situation that you have gone through, then actually nobody externally has gone through what you have gone through. Even two people who have gone through a divorce, their situation and their experiences are totally different. And so if you press the matter, externally, of course, no one has gone through same exact situation that you have gone through. Absolutely not. But at the core of that experience, people have gone through similar things that you have gone through. So yes, externally, maybe Jesus hasn't gone through miscarriage, divorce, physical disability, or other things. But yet, at the core of his being, at the core of your being, the deep, unfulfilled desires that you have. The loneliness, the alienation, the deep, deep disappointments that you go through, the pain that you go through, that's something that Jesus understands. And he understands much more than we do. Now, you might ask, it says here that Jesus is without sin. So, wasn't it easier for him to go through these things? For us, we have sin. And because of that, temptations, pain, and suffering, it's very difficult for us. But for Jesus, he's without sin. So it's kind of unfair. Well, how about this? Think about it another way. I'm actually going to say that because Jesus is without sin, he's actually a better counselor. What do I mean by that? Okay. Some of you guys might be able to resonate with this. Me, as a pastor, I deal with a lot of counseling, as you guys can imagine. I talk to many different people. And some of you guys who maybe do direct care, maybe you see patients in the hospital, or even maybe you have to take care of kids and you have to talk through them, right? These kind of direct care type of professions. We have a secret. Can I tell them the secret? Okay, we have a secret. One of the main reasons why me as a pastor or other caretakers, we have such a difficult time sympathizing with others, it's not really because I haven't gone through what the people have gone through. And in a lot of cases, like I said, externally maybe the situation is different, but at the core, I understand what loneliness is. I understand what unfulfilled desire. I understand what disappointment is like. I understand what betrayal is even like. I understand that. That's actually not the issue, why I have such a difficult time and why I am not a very good counselor and why some of you guys are not a very good counselor. One of the reasons why I am not a very good counselor is because I am a sinner. What I mean by that is, it's because I am a sinner that even though you're telling me about your problems and you're going through such a difficult time, because I am a sinner and I am going through my pain and my struggle, that I'm not able to fully sympathize with you. Because I'm thinking about my pain as you are telling me about yours. I'm thinking about my complex, my unique pain, and I feel like no one can understand that. You see, that actually gets in the way. My sin actually gets in the way of me sympathizing fully with you. So you see, this idea that God, who experienced everything that you've experienced, maybe not externally, but at the core, he understands what it feels to go through pain and suffering, yet he's able to fully sympathize with you. That's what makes him a great and a wonderful counselor. My sins make me self-absorbed. My sins make me self-pity, self-centered. I start feeling sorry for myself. I start looking at myself. And because of that, that's why humans, although there are great counselors, they're never enough. Because for us, we have gone through the fire, we have gone through a difficult time, but we're scarred. We have pain. But Jesus is the only one who's gone through the fire, but not left the scar. He's the only one who's able to actually fully give you full attention. He's able to fully sympathize with all your pain and struggle. So do you see why the Bible says he's not just the king? He's not just a friend. Of course he is. He's not just a father, even though he is. But he's a wonderful, wonderful counselor. He's able to sympathize with all your pain and the deepest longing of your heart. Yet, because he's without sin, he's fully able to heal you in the way that you should. Now, for us, a lot of these things, you're like, Pastor, heard it. I grew up in church. We heard this stuff. I have a problem. Go to Jesus. I feel the same exact way. Okay, I feel exactly the same way. But you know how unique, like, us as Christians, we are so spoiled to this concept that, okay, I have a problem. Okay, I'm going to pray. Yeah, I need to go to... Like, we are so spoiled in this thought. Do you know why? Because every other religion, you don't get that. Do you know how unique it is for us that we have this wonderful counselor? Hinduism, what do they say? Young adults, we did many different studies on this. What's the reason why I suffer in Hinduism? It's because I did something bad in the past. Karma. I did something bad in the past, and that's why I'm going through this suffering. So I don't need a counselor. I can't go to a counselor. There is no counselor. Why? Because it's my own problems that I need to deal with. There is nobody. What the different million types of God are going to say is, this is your problem. Too bad. You have to go through it. You have to make the right wrong. You're on your own here, buddy. Buddhism. What do they say? Buddhists say The reason why you suffer is because you are holding on to things. You are attached to things. So let go. Let go of your desires, your lust. Let go of these things. Then you will find peace. So again, it's up to you. God cannot help you. There is no counselor. Islam. God is a king. God is lofty. He is not a personal God. You have to deal with it. There is no Allah who will help you. Do you see that it is only within Christianity that we have a counselor? Do you see that Christianity is the only religion where God is able to say, it's not because I just know everything, but I've actually experienced everything. Externally, maybe not. But deep down inside, the deep longing of your hearts, I understand what you are going through. When Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus is saying, God, I want it this way. I don't want to go through with this anymore. And when God says no, Jesus understands what it means to have the deepest unfulfilled desires of your heart. When Jesus is praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's asking his friends to pray for him, and instead they just sleep, he understands what loneliness feels like. When Jesus is praying in the garden, and Judas comes, someone who he has spent 3 years with, laughed with, ate with, and Judas kisses him. He understands what betrayal and abandonment looks like. When all the disciples who said, just a couple hours before, Jesus, I'll die for you, I'll give my life for you, I got your back. And they are all running away. He understands. You guys understand? The craziest thing, this is so crazy because our symbol as Christianity, you guys know, is a cross. Okay? What is a cross? Cross is how Jesus died. Okay? Imagine if I go to, long time ago, to African slaves, and I'm wearing a chain with a whip. Or imagine if I go to somebody who's been abused by parents, maybe with a bat, and I have a chain that says, it has a bat right here. Do you guys understand? Our whole religion is based upon someone who has gone through immense suffering and pain. Much, much more than we have. So when pastors, when people tell you, go to God, it is not because He's this mighty God who will just lift you up. It's not that. Even though He is that as well. It's more that He is this wonderful, wonderful counselor who says, yeah, I understand your loneliness. I understand why you feel so much pain. I understand the deepest, unfulfilled desires of your heart. You see why He's a wonderful, wonderful counselor? Because He has gone through it all. There's a really, really weird passage or phrase that comes out over and over and over again in the Bible. And I don't know if you guys ever caught this before, but it's so weird because it says this. Let me go to it. This is 1 Peter. Rejoice insofar as you share Christ's suffering, that you may also receive and be glad when his glory is revealed. This is such a unique phrase. Because a lot of us, we view like this. We view it as, God understands my pain when I'm going through difficult time. But what the Bible actually says, what the disciples actually says is, when I'm going through suffering and pain, I know what he has actually gone through. It's like a total change in perspective. So when I go through difficult time, it's not about, yes, of course, this is included. Oh, God understands my pain. But more than that, it's when I'm going through difficult time and pain, what I should be thinking actually is, I understand Jesus' pain. So it's not only that God, this counselor, knows your pain, but as you go through pain and suffering, you actually understand. You actually get a glimpse of what God goes through every single day. So, when you are going through a difficult time, absolutely, there's absolute peace that comes over when you know God as your counselor. But I want you to go a little further. I want you to take another step this week. And I want you to say, actually, when you are going through deep unfulfilled desires and disappointments, I want you to also think, this is what Jesus is actually going through. When you are abandoned by someone, I want you to think, this is what Jesus is actually going through when I abandoned him. When you feel lonely this week, yes, of course, Jesus understands your loneliness, yet I want you to go another step and say, this is what Jesus must feel like as well. When Jesus calls you to an action, when Jesus calls you to forgive someone, and you struggle, and you're like every desire in your heart you don't want to, I want you to think, it was equally as hard for Jesus. This is not an easy thing. When you look at the news and you see all the atrocities that happen in the world, I want you to think, imagine what Jesus is going through. He's going through all the pain, all the struggle. That's why the disciples are saying, we are rejoicing. Because through me going through this pain, I get to understand what he has gone through. When I go through this deep disappointment, I understand what his disappointments must be like as well. Let me end with this. There's a story in the Bible that you guys are very familiar with. We actually read it in Sabbath school. Do you guys remember the lady who had some kind of medical problem for 12 years and she kept like bleeding and stuff like that? And you guys remember that story of how this lady, like she wanted to like meet Jesus because she wanted to be healed, but there was just so many people surrounding him. And she was just like, oh, I need to get to him, but I can't. All I can do is just touch his clothes. And I know that I will be healed. Do you guys remember that story, right? Do you guys remember, after he touched her, do you know what it says? It actually says in the Bible, strength or power left him. You guys Do you guys know that being a counselor is super duper difficult? The reason is because it is very, very draining. This is actually one of the reasons why I get so fat, guys. Even though I try so hard to lose weight, I just gain it all back. It's because I come home and I'm so drained. Because I have talked to people with problems. And it just drains you. It just like sucks life out of you. And some of you guys, maybe in your field, you feel the same way. You have taken care of your kids, and you're just like, life is sucked out of you. Or maybe you dealt with patients, and they just like suck the life out of you. And there's some days, and you guys know, some of you guys in the care profession, you guys know, you go, okay, I can't deal with this today. Like, I'm going to detach emotionally. Because I know that if I invest in my patients, or my church members, or my kids, I know that it's going to suck life out of me. Do you guys know that Jesus being our counselor, this is not an easy thing. Don't ever think that this is an easy thing for Jesus, because he's omnipotent. Do you know why in the Bible it says that Jesus woke up every morning to pray? It is because he was utterly drained. He was so tired. When people touched him, when people wanted miracles from him, strength went out. Why? Because he fully immersed himself with them. We see when Nazareth dies, do you guys remember that? When he comes and sees Nazareth dead, and he sees Martha and Mary, they're crying, he cries also. Why? Even though he knows he's going to raise him from the dead, he is crying with them. Why? Because he's fully invested in them. He lets people train him. Don't ever think that this is cheap. Don't ever think this is free. Don't ever think that this was easy for Jesus. Jesus became the perfect counselor for us. Because literally, we suck the life out of him. Jesus has gone through the cross. He has gone through so much so that he can become a great counselor for us. And this is why, you see, we can't just say, guys, just pray to him. No, it's so much more depth. You got to utilize this. You got to use this for your advantage. He has gone through everything so he can be the greatest counselor for you. Will you get to know God? Not only as a father, not only as a friend, not only as a king, even though all of those aspects are very important. But will you get to know him today? And this week, as you're going through pain and suffering, will you get to know him? Experience him as your personal counselor? I normally don't do this, but I found a song I thought was very appropriate. So I wanted to actually sing this song for you. So if you could, I actually have the lyrics, Enoch. So if you can press next. The song is called No One Else Knows. It's by Building 429. And so I'll sing it for you next. not showing it. When all I am is crying out, I hold it in and fake a smile. Still I'm broken. I'm broken. Only you can understand, and only you can hold the hand of the broken. Broken. When no one else knows how I feel, your love for me is proven real. When no one else cares where I've been, you run to me with outstretched hands, and you hold me in your arms again. I need no explanation of why me, just need combination. Only you can understand the emptiness inside my head. I am falling, Lord, I am falling. I'm falling up upon my knees to find the one who gives me peace. I am flying, Lord, I am flying. When no one else knows how I feel, your love for me is proven real. When no one else cares where I've been, you run to me with outstretched hands, and you hold me in your arms again. I have come to you in search of faith, 'cause I can't see beyond this place. For you are God, and I am man. So leave it in your hand. When no one else knows how I feel, your love for me is proven real. When no one else cares where I've been, you run to me with outstretched hands, and you hold me in your arms again. Let's go into